I inherited my grandfather's fishing license after he died, but I just found out it was for catching fish. Intertito and never really been much of a fisherman. When Grandpa Eddie died last month, he left me his boat and his commercial lobster license. Things worth more than most houses around here. I hadn't planned to use it. I've worked in Boston for 8 years, hadn't touched a rod since high school. Losing the last family member who really knew me made me want to come back to Millfield Harbor. The boat was decent for 20 years old. I spent a week cleaning, organizing Grandpa's gear, wondering if I could make a living pulling lobster traps. That's when I found a second license. Going through his tackle box, I found a hidden compartment. Inside was a yellowed manila envelope with a weird handwritten license. At the top, Special Maritime Authority Class D. Faded blue ink. Below, a strange symbol like tentacles wrapped around an anchor. At the bottom, Grandpa's scrawl active since the 1980s, 7 feet monthly or face consequences. I thought it was a joke until I showed it to Captain Briggs, a fisherman here for 40 years. His face went white. "Where the hell did you get this?" he whispered. I told him it was Grandpa's boat. He pulled me into a corner booth at Murphy's Tavern, ordered 2 whiskeys at noon. "That's not a fishing license, kid. It's a feeding license." Back in the 80 seconds, something started hunting fishing boats off the coast, not sharks or whales, something else. Something that dragged entire vessels down into the depths, leaving only oil slicks and debris. The Coast Guard couldn't figure it out. Boats kept disappearing. Then some older fishermen made a deal: 1 boat a month goes out with bait to feed it. Keep it satisfied so it won't hunt the rest of the fleet. "Your grandfather volunteered first," Briggs said. "Been doing it for 36 years. I stared at the license. What exactly was he feeding at? Pigs mostly. Sometimes cattle. Whatever's cheap and heavy enough to sink fast. If he stopped, it would start hunting again. The date on the license: Grandpa's last feeding was 3 weeks ago, right before his heart attack. That night I called in sleep, thinking about boats disappearing, about Grandpa going out alone every month for 36 years, carrying livestock to feed some kind of monster. I decided to see for myself. Loaded the boat with 50 pounds of frozen mackerel, headed to the coordinates on the back of the license. About 12 miles offshore, where the continental shelf drops into an underwater canyon over 800 feet deep. The water was dead calm. No seabirds, no dolphins, no usual ocean sounds. I cut the engine and dumped the mackerel overboard, wondering if I was losing my mind. Then my depth finder went crazy. Something huge was rising from the bottom, a mammoth the size of a school bus, moving fast toward the surface. The water churned and bubbled. Tentacles appeared dozens, one thick as a telephone pole, breaking the surface around my boat. They looked covered in barnacles, but closer inspection showed they were hundreds of tiny black eyes. The creatures had emerged, like a giant squid, but with too many eyes arranged in spirals on its skull. Rows of teeth spiraled down its throat like a living garbage disposal. It stared at me with an intelligence that made my skin crawl. I dumped the rest of the mackerel into the water fast. The tentacles snatched fish instantly, crunching wetly, but it wasn't enough. They kept staring, tentacles reaching closer. I realized Grandpa hadn't been feeding fish. He'd been feeding livestock, big, heavy animals full of meat and fat. One tentacle wrapped around my boat's stern and started pulling. The deck tilted sharply. I slid toward the water. I grabbed a flare gun and fired into the cluster of eyes on its head. It let out a sound like metal scraping metal and released the boat, but it didn't retreat. It circled me, tentacles slapping water like deciding whether to finish me off. I started the engine and gun toward shore, expecting to be grabbed, but it watched me go, then sank back with a grinding sound. Back at the harbor, Briggs was waiting. "You went out there, didn't you?" he said. I nodded, still shaking. "Did you feed it enough?" "I don't think so." "Then you better get a cow and do it fast." I wanted to run, sell the boat, go back to Boston, pretend none of this happened. But I thought about all the fishing boats going out every day, all the families depending on the ocean, unaware of what lurks in the deep. I bought 3 pigs from a farm inland and loaded them onto the boat. The next morning, I dumped them at the coordinates. The creature took them and disappeared without trying to kill me. I've been doing it for months now. Once a month, I take livestock out to feed the thing in the canyon. Someone has to. If I don't, it will start hunting again. The worst part? Last week, I found coordinates for 3 other feeding spots along the coast in Grandpa's logbook. I'm not the only one with a Class D license, and I'm starting to think that they got spun down there.